In this tutorial, we will discuss databases and material types. This is the third video in a four-part video tutorial series. We are talking about databases and material types. Specifically, we will be discussing the academic resources that are available. We'll discuss a little bit about grade literature, primary versus secondary resources, and the peer review process. Then we'll move on to research databases. I'll review the anatomy of a database, as well as some database tips and tricks. So there are many kinds of academic resources. These include books and journals, which would be considered traditionally published. And then there are dissertations, theses, conference proceedings and papers, organizational reports, government documents, statistics and data sets, and many more. So anything that you see in that gray box there is considered gray literature, and essentially it's anything produced outside of that traditional commercial publisher. So it can be produced by governments, it can still be produced by researchers, and it can also be produced by businesses. So next we move on to primary and secondary literature. You may hear this referred to. So primary literature requires original research, and it deals with a very current, highly specialized topic, and this includes original research articles. It could also include a thesis or dissertation. Secondary literature, however, is based on previously published studies, and it usually discusses or summarizes primary literature. An example of this would be a monograph, which is another word for a book, or a review article, such as a literature review, or a systematic review, or a scoping review. And literature can actually be both primary and secondary. So this graphic shows that a little bit here. So first we have a topic selection, we research it, we'll talk about it amongst our peers in the field, then we'll submit a paper or poster and that can be published as a journal article. Which would be considered primary literature if it was original research, and then someone else can go on to write about our research and publish that in their own journal article as a literature review. Then it can be talked about in a magazine, that can go into a textbook or reference source, and those are all secondary literature examples there. But just want to make it clear that a journal article can be both primary and secondary literature. So what is peer review? This is the peer review process. Typically, one will research and write a manuscript, which they will then send off to a journal editor. Then 3 to 5 experts in the field will review the article. They will make the decision to accept, recommend revisions, or entirely reject the paper. So peer review can sometimes be used interchangeably with scholarly, but they are two different things because not all scholarly articles are technically peer-reviewed. Editorials typically are not peer-reviewed, so that's an example of something that it would be a scholarly article that could be published in a peer-reviewed journal. So the journal itself uses the peer review process, which is strictly an editorial process that many journals use to ensure that the articles published in their journal are high quality scholarship. So how to tell if something's peer reviewed? Well, a lot of the databases do have a filter available where you can just check a little box and it will try and retrieve only articles from peer reviewed journals. We also have a database called Ulrich's Web. You can find information about Ulrich's Web under the How Do I tab, under Find Peer Reviewed Articles. You can also access the database from Ulrich's Web, or you can go directly to Ulrich's Web through the 4th tab on the HPD homepage, Databases, and find it that way. But Ulrich's Web, all you have to do is type in a journal name, and then you will see an icon to the left of the journal name if it is considered peer review. The icon is a little referee jersey, and that is it's a little black and white jersey, and that is because peer-reviewed is also referred to sometimes as refereed. So where do you search? When you search online, you're really just hitting the tip of the iceberg of the information that's out there. While the information on the internet is free, you can find a lot of information tucked behind a paywall in subscription databases. The library does pay to access these databases. They do allow for sophisticated searching, and they are quite organized. They even have their own vocabulary to organize the concepts within a database, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So the databases are really one of the best places to look for scholarly articles and peer-reviewed information. NOVA subscribes to over 500 databases, and we have over 200 health science databases. These are just a few of our databases. One place where you're going to want to start your search most of the time is going to be CINAHL Complete. One major literature database that you should be familiar with is Medline. Now, at NSU, we do have access to Medline through several different resources. Those include PubMed.gov, Ovid Medline, and EBSCO Medline with full text. On the PT Library Guide, you will see that the Medline that we link there is through EBSCO. So the literature databases are tools used to find the evidence in the articles. They're often referred to as article databases or indexes, and these databases index or abstract the evidence. Again, these databases index or abstract the evidence. So what does that mean? Well, index means to include information about an article, the journal it's published in, the author's publication date, that sort of thing. To abstract means to include a brief summary of the article. In other words, what the article is about. So a literature database will have a record with the index and the abstract, and when you go to a literature database and you enter in a search term, what it's doing, it is searching the index and the abstract for the term that you typed in. It does not search the full text of an article, and sometimes the databases don't even have the full text of the article, but it does let you know that there was an article created about that topic. Also at NSU, it's important to point out that we have a lot of different journals, and sometimes they do overlap. This happened before when we looked at the Journal of Hand Therapy. It was available through 5 different databases. However, some of the databases also have unique journals, which is why we include them in our collection. Move on to the anatomy of a research database. Each database contains descriptions of different journals based on the defined scope of the database. This allows for subject searching across hundreds of journals at once. Within the database, there are records. Each record describes one individual article. Each record is divided into searchable fields such as title or author. Again, these fields are what are searched whenever you enter in a search term. So here's some database tips. Before you head over to a database, make sure that you've broken up your topic into concepts. We'll review this a bit more in the next video. The next tip is to brainstorm keywords. Why? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the fields within the record of a database is what the database searches when a term is entered into the search bar. Not every word within the article is searched. The author writes the abstract, and they may have used different words to talk about the concepts that you are exploring. So it is really important to think outside of the box when thinking of alternative terms, synonyms, and even variations of spellings. The next tip is to never type the entire question into the search field, because the database will search and return any article that has any word that you typed into the search box. Next, broaden or narrow your search with truncation, limiters, and controlled vocabulary. To broaden your search, use truncation. This can help you find alternative ending to search word. Adding a star to the root word will look up different variations, such as children, children's, and childhood if you were to put child with a star next to it. One way to narrow your search is by phrase searching. So you can do this by putting quotations on the outside of it, so it will only search for that particular term. You should also use limiters and advanced search features. Here's an example of 2 different limiter bars that you will see within CINAHL and Medline. Next, it's important to use controlled vocabulary or subject headings. So databases assign tags or subject headings within an article. So this is located next to the citation or abstract on the search result page. So it's also a good idea to search term suggestions when you're thinking about your search. It may give you different ideas on what to look for, especially if you're not finding the results you need. So controlled vocabulary or subject headings can be found in different places on different databases, and they're called different things. You may see it referred to as thesaurus. In CINAHL, they refer to their controlled vocabulary as CINAHL subject headings. In Medline PubMed, it is referred to as MESH, which stands for medical subject headings, and it looks different on every database, but if you ever need assistance, don't hesitate to reach out to a librarian. So there are many options when you are searching the database. When it comes to database searching at NSU, there are many options available to you. Please remember that no single resource will contain everything. On the Physical Therapy Guide, under the Resources tab, select Find Articles for a list of the databases that the librarians recommend. We recommend that you start with CINAHL, but consider other databases in order to conduct a comprehensive search. The database subjects vary, so consider other databases based on your research topic. It's important to note that we do have two different database vendors. They are ProQuest and EBSCO. So you will see EBSCO or ProQuest in parentheses. Whenever you click on a database, such as CINAHL, and it is by EBSCO, it will look similar to another database that EBSCO provides, such as AgeLine. This concludes the databases and material types video. In the next video, we will discuss research strategies and tips. Thank you.